In the division methods that we have learned in class, we had several items. It could be just one item, but it usually was more than one item that had to be divided up among several parties. And for the most part, we wanted to give the items in their entirety to one party. So each thing went to somebody. And in adjusted winner, there was one item that had to be shared or split up. In the Naster inheritance procedure, we didn't do that, and we just made things even using cash. So, like I said, except for the one item in adjusted winner, we were not dividing individual items up, right? We were just seeing who got what and then trying to make it as fair and equal as possible. But now we want to switch gears and talk about when there is only one thing and we want to divide it among 2 or 3 or 4 parties or people, and it's all about dividing it up. It's all about splitting it and sharing it. Okay, so it's not at all the case now that somebody will get the whole thing. So for example, the common example that's used in this is a cake. So there's, say, like 3 people, and we have a cake, and we want to divide up the cake among the 3 people so that they're all happy. How do we do that? All right, now we'll talk about cake as our ongoing example, even though that's kind of frivolous, I admit, and just so you're still want to believe that this is of practical use in the real world, I just want to also mention that this could be dividing up Germany after World War II among the victorious Allies. How did that occur? How did they all agree on how to split that up? Or something that goes on into the present, and our book talks about this in a paragraph. There's lots of minerals in the ground under the ocean, and so countries have mining rights to different parts of it. So how do we divide up the ocean, which is not owned by any one country? How do we divvy up different parts of the ocean and assign them to different countries in a way that everybody's happy? Okay, so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about one thing that is going to be divided up among 2 or 3 or 4 or some number of parties. And again, what's key about this is the same thing that was key in the other procedures when there were multiple items, which is the people, the parties, value things differently. If everybody feels the same way about things, and they all agree on what everything is worth, then you just put a number on it and divide by how many there are. But what makes this an interesting problem is when they all have differing opinions about what things are worth. Okay, so first thing we want to talk about is if there's only 2 people, 2 parties. And again, so just because it's more fun, I'll talk about a cake. But remember, it could be something a little bit more important. All right, so we have a cake, and 2 people want to divide it between them. So I'll make this a rectangular cake, even though my picture on the other page was circular. And again, A and B, these are our 2 people. They may feel differently about things. Maybe there's, as in the picture, maybe there's strawberries on here, and maybe one person likes strawberries more than the other person. Maybe one of the people likes frosting more and they'd rather have a corner piece, and who knows. It's not all just about equal size, right? It could be, of course. The size of the piece will certainly matter. A and B would rather have more than less, but it might be other things too that they have different opinions about. Okay, so but whatever the situation is, these 2 people want to divide the cake. All right, and this is a very famous thing. It's called divide and choose, and I bet some of you have heard of this before. How do 2 people fairly divide 2 things? Quite simply, one person cuts it, and then the other person gets to choose the piece. So A maybe cuts it in a certain way. I don't know, like that. And maybe this piece seems to be smaller, but it's got more strawberries, so whatever. A cuts it like that, and then B gets to choose the piece. So that's the procedure. Now what's important for you to realize is that if you're A, you're the one who's doing the cutting, you want to divide it as evenly as possible in your opinion, because you aren't going to get to choose, so you don't know which piece you're going to get. So you want to cut it so that you think this is 50% of the value of the cake and this is 50% of the value of the cake. If you cut it 60-40 to your opinion, B may choose the 60 and leave you with the 40. Maybe not, but if you don't want to take a risk, you want to cut it so that you can ensure that you're going to get 50%. So A will get what she thinks is 50% of the value of the goodness of the cake, right? And of course, now B isn't doing the cutting, but B gets to pick either one. Now B may think B has different opinions, right? So B may think it's 50 and 50 in terms of the value, and then B will just choose one, maybe flip a coin. But B may think, maybe B really likes strawberries, and so B actually thinks this piece is worth more than this piece, so B will take that one. And A should be fine with it because, again, A did the cutting and thinks both pieces are equal. Right? So when you think this through and you think through the strategies, this will work. A will get something that she thinks is half the price, and B will get something that he thinks is actually at least half, right? Maybe more. Okay, so in terms of our properties for division, this is Pareto. We can't change it and make somebody happier without making somebody sadder. This is envy-free. Nobody's going to want to switch with the other person, right? And this is proportional. Everybody thinks they're getting their fair share, which in this case with two parties is half. Everybody thinks they're getting at least half of the value of the cake. Now notice I did not put equitable. It's not equitable because A is going to get 50% of the cake in her opinion. Right, like if she cuts, because she's in charge of the cutting, so she's going to cut it 50-50 according to her opinion, and so she's going to get a piece that's 50. But B may feel about the value differently, and B may get something that's more than 50%. So they don't end up getting the same amount, based on their own opinion. So we can't say it's equitable. But remember, I said in class that equitable may or may not be the most important thing. I will say that I'd rather be B than A here, right? Because with B, if you're B, you stand at least a chance of getting something more than 50% of the value. Whereas if you're A, you're going to get 50% of the value. All right, so that's the idea of divide and choose. Again, I want to emphasize that this only works when you have two parties that are dividing something up. And you want to remember that it's Pareto, envy-free, and proportional. Okay, so we want to bring in a method that works for 3 people or more, and so in the next video we will look at that.